Okay, so first just kind of talking a little bit about DHCP, and again, most of you that are in this class had 231 last semester, so DHCP concept and what it is should not be new to you, not just from 231, but isn't it also covered in the networking technologies class? No, yes, I think it must be. So again, so I'm going to begin with just pretty much, a lecture with what it is, how it works, and then we'll obviously look at how to actually configure it within your OpenSUSE system. So again, DHCP used to automatically deliver IP addresses. Obviously, the purpose is to assign network settings centrally from a server, so I don't have to manually configure these settings. DHCP service has to be installed. It's not installed by default on your OpenSUSE machine, so we are going to have to install them. And obviously the benefit is it reduces the amount of time that you spend configuring computers, because your DHCP server is in essence, you obviously need to know what settings your computers need so that you can appropriately configure DHCP. But once you've properly configured DHCP, your clients are going to receive all its settings from your server. Okay, and obviously it is used by default by the client. Now, of course, for our class purposes, our clients are initially going to be, by the time you get to the DHCP homework assignment, you're going to have configured static addresses on your client machine for the first review homework assignment, because once you put yourself in lockdown mode, there's no DHCP server to assign your machine an IP address. Last semester, you guys were not on a private network in 133, you were on the college network, so you were actually receiving IP addresses from the college's DHCP server. Okay, so once you add yourself to a private network, until you have DHCP, both of your machines on your network are going to be statically configured. Okay, but by default, a client, just as with Windows, is dynamically configured. Okay, it automatically assumes that it's going to get an IP address from another, from a DHCP server on the network. Okay, and again, leasing an IP address, the packets, the DHCP Discover packet, the client sends out a DHCP Discover packet that pretty much says, hey, I need an IP address. The server sends back a DHCP offer, okay, identifying settings that it's offering it. The DHCP client will request, in essence, send back and say, yes, I do request to keep those settings, and then the acknowledgement packet is sent back by the DHCP server to indicate, okay, these settings are officially yours. Okay, so the 4 packets, that doesn't change, regardless of which what type of operating system you're using. DHCP works the same way in regards to how the client communicates with the server. Okay, which is kind of what I just said. Okay, everything on this slide is what I just said. Okay, client receives the packet, the DHCP request, said all that already. Okay, so renewing an IP address, obviously the IP address can either be permanent or timed. A permanent address is never reused for another client, so that's kind of like a reservation. In Windows, I'll use Windows terms. They're not called reservations in Linux, but I'll use Windows terms so that you understand what I'm referring to. They're actually called fixed addresses in Linux. So the IP address, so I can specify I want that computer to always receive this IP address, or I want the printer, the computer that has this MAC address or the network adapter that has this MAC address to always receive this particular address. So that would be a permanent address. And obviously a timed address is a leased address. So again, obviously you have leases in OpenSUSE DHCP just like you do in Windows. So timed leases expire after a certain amount of time. Clients attempt to renew their lease based on the configured lease time. So Linux is a little different in the way that that it renews leases. And I say this with hesitation because your OpenSUSE changed the network service that it uses maybe 2 versions ago. And the way that DHCP was the previous network service allowed a client to say, I want to renew this lease for 50 days. So in the process of renewing the lease, the person who's typing the command could indicate how long they want to have the lease for. Now, the DHCP server, when we look at how it's configured, can set a max on that. Okay, the new network service that is used by OpenSUSE is called Wicked. Yeah, Wicked. Okay, Wicked, W-I-C-K-E-D. And I have not been able to find the appropriate parameters to in fact do that. Okay, the previous service, the command that, I know I probably have it in my notes here, is still the command that I would use to say, I want to renew my lease. I don't want to renew it for the default 4 days. I want to renew it for 50 days. Okay, and if the server allowed it, so if I configure my DHCP server to say the default lease time is 4 days, the maximum lease time is 50. Okay, then that person would be able to lease it for 50 days. If I said I want to lease it for 90 days and the max was set at 50, then the default lease time would be assigned in 50, and their request would be denied to increase that amount. So my point is that clients can attempt to renew their lease based on the configured lease time. They can also, they don't know whether Wicked does it or not. Maybe that'll be another extra credit question in there to see if somebody can figure out how, because I can't imagine that it wouldn't be, because it's still a setting that I can configure in the server end, so there must be a way on the client end to make that request. Okay, so, and as is true with Microsoft, the DHCP server may either honor or reject a new request. Again, ideally, typically, I should say, if a request is denied, it probably, if it's a renewal request, it may be your computer's been off for 5 days, your IP address has already been thrown back in the pool, and another computer's been assigned that address. So no, you can't have that one back, but here's another one. Okay, so the same general idea as Microsoft. Okay. So in an OpenSUSE environment, the DHCP server daemon DHCPD, okay, is the daemon that actually is used by DHCP. It is not automatically installed. It can get installed. You can obviously install it during the installation of the operating system, which I did not do. You can install it via YAS, which I will not do. But you can install it from the command line, which is what I will do. Okay, so again, we'll use the zipper command to install it in a couple of seconds. On the client side, there are actually a couple of different clients that you can use. The DHCP client, DHCP CD, is the one that OpenSUSE uses, the Internet Systems Consortium ISC DHCP client. I have not played with that client, but evidently you can also configure that one. But which leads me to stop and think maybe there is a way with that one too. Anyway, so OpenSUSE by default uses the DHCP CD, which is why that's the one that I use. Okay, it does not need a configuration file, whereas the ISC DHCP client actually does need a configuration file. So again, I was just going to swipe. I don't know where I thought I was. The second, the ISC, not the one we're using. Okay? Okay. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go and I'm going to stop the video and start a new one, and we'll look at actually